All right. Welcome, everybody. As we're shifting from sevens into 15s, one of the big differences in that game is sevens, you're kind of just reacting to a lot of the stuff and just got to call what's out in front of you. In 15s, the game is more like a story, and we have a lot of more chances to influence what's going to happen to try to get better behavior, allow more rugby to happen later in the game. So, on that note, we're going to focus on how can we change behavior within a game. And this is based on a presentation that those of us in the regional development group got to see this year when we went to the camp that USA Rugby puts on for folks in that group. If anyone has questions about what the regional development group is, they can reach out to me after that. It's essentially the society nominates a few folks to be on this group as some of our higher performing and more invested referees get to do this. And there's a couple other considerations for who gets picked, but I'd like to, it's only been in existence really for about 2 years. And I'd like to kind of probably turn over some of the people in it in the next year or two to give more people chances and access to that kind of stuff directly. One thing they like to say is like we're not really just like an umpire in baseball calling balls and strikes, right? There's a lot of nuance goes into that. And one of the points in this is that in the context of a game, whether or not I'm calling this penalty is very dependent on what's happening in the game. The first 10 minutes, I might be more likely to call a penalty to set a high standard than in that same exact picture happening at like minute 35, if it's especially if it's like a 50-50 anyway. So like this is not what we're doing. It's not balls and strikes. There's a lot more nuance going on. So what we're talking about here is like I said, we're trying to improve the game over the 80 minutes that it's happening, try to get more rugby, try to have fewer penalties, that sort of thing. And what they pointed out here on the last bullet point is that they want to our target should be to not have games with more than 28 penalties. That's a really high penalty count. And so we're looking at Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point, I think.
Sure. So one of the things we can do as part of that lead in that Jake just gave us, how do we produce the best amount of rugby? How do we reduce our overall total penalty count from a referee perspective? It starts with some of the things that you can control. So one of the main things that we have in our toolbox is the way we interact with captains. And so for this slide, we're going to talk through a few of those pieces that we can then use to impact that story. As Jake mentioned, sevens is more bang, 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 the game's over. 15s is an 80-minute story that you are very much a part of. So one of the things we have with that referee captain interaction is the pre-match chat. There we go. So one of the things you want to make sure to include in that pre-match chat, that I know everyone has a good habit of saying like, yeah, I only want to hear from you during the game. I don't want all the players chirping me constantly. But the next step beyond that that you can start to employ in your own game is the types of conversations that you're inviting. Having that line of communication doesn't necessarily mean the captain can just complain to you about calls that the captain disagrees with. Instead, you want to frame that as a conversation for how do we improve the game that we're all involved in today. My goal as a referee is to, number one, player safety, number two, facilitate a fair match of rugby. Like that's all I care about is I want there to be a really good rugby game to happen. And that's the captain's goal as well. He wants to play good rugby. She wants to play great rugby with her team. Obviously, they want to win, but one of the main reasons everyone's there is for the match. And so, in your pre match chat, make it clear the expectations you're inviting for the types of conversations you expect to happen during the game.
Phil, can you just give us another example of you mentioned that like if they're just complaining, that's a thing you don't want to happen. Can you give us an example of what kind of conversation you do want to happen?
Yeah, you're looking for more of a conversation around the picture that you're trying to see or the overall structure of the game that you're trying to facilitate. So a really good example would be like if the captain's complaining to you that the other team is cheating in a certain way over and over again, but you have never made that call up until this conversation happens, you're clearly not seeing the same picture the captain's seeing. So they might say something like, they're laying all over the wrong side of the ruck and you haven't called a single not rolling penalty, which means you guys are seeing very different things. And so to align on that, you have a better understanding of the captain's probably bringing that to you because that captain's getting frustrated on the structure of the ruck or the breakdown, or they're not able to play as fast as they want. So instead of arguing about is the call right or wrong, or I didn't see the player not rolling yet, that's you're not really going to get a productive game of rugby out of that. Instead, reframe for the picture you're trying to see. Something like if you want cleaner rucks, your arriving players need to arrive sooner. They're arriving too late, which allows the defense to slow down your ball. An example of the picture, try to answer more of the spirit of the question rather than just the complaint that's within the question. So, if we're talking about that overall 80-minute story that we're going to tell, one of the main things we can influence as referees is changing behavior. So, that comes back to what are we penalizing and why? And if we're penalizing things, we're saying that those things are not acceptable in the game that we're having today. And I think using that frame of mind helps you understand where we're going next with the concept of escalation, which is built into this concept of trends. So, this whole conversation around change behavior is there's things that are happening that are against what we're trying to produce, which is, again, a really good game of rugby. So, if this thing is against that, I'm penalizing it. And if it keeps happening, now I need to escalate. One of the main ways we can do that is with that captain interaction. We can set the stage in the pre-match chat. We can say what kind of conversations we want to allow. And then during the game, we can come back to that captain and reinforce some of the topics that we gave before the match, or make the captain aware of something that you've started to see. So you say, I am now aware of whatever the thing is, and now the captain has become aware because you told them. So that escalation through the captain is one of these things in your toolbox on your overall structure of how we tell the story of a rugby match.
Yeah, and also I'll show an example of a ref doing this here. So this is not obviously this is during a game. We're in minute 14. It's 5-0, and this ref has had a problem with both sides and had a pre-match talk, right? We didn't see the pre-match talk. Those are rarely filmed, but we're going to see kind of what she does after that, and she's going to reference that pre-match talk.
I'm not mad. I'm just really disappointed because you both gave me buy-in before the game in the change room that you'd be able to control your players. So did you lie to me, or is it something you can fix from now? Thank you. Speak to both your teams. Thank you.
Oh, fine. So we just got her referencing that pre-match talk. They agreed to do a thing, and she's just reminding them, you agreed to do this thing. Like, let's get back on that same page.
And the really important piece of that, the way she approached that, is that they are a separate team from what's going on in the game, right? You have red versus white, but then you also have referee plus two captains is another team of people who need to be able to work together. And so for both of those captains to be like, yeah, ma'am, you're right, we'll go talk to the boys, is the exact reaction you want when you're having that type of conversation. But it only happens because she approached it with empathy. Like, we had this chat already before the game. You gave me your buy-in. Can you help me fix this problem? So she's reaching out to the captains to be like, we all need to work together to make this game better. And what she doesn't say, but what's implied here is otherwise there will be consequences. If anybody has seen that game, it's a lot of people yelling at her, and it stops after this conversation, which is phenomenal.
So, Phil, just a comment. Her statement, did you lie to me? Do you take that as like a severe statement to really set the tone, or is that like overstatement of the situation?
That could have been a little much, depending on the rapport that she built with those captains before the game. Again, without us seeing that conversation, it's hard to know, is the did you lie to me a bit of a jab, or is it more of like a playful, like, hey, we talked about trust before the game, and now I'm asking you to bring that trust to the forefront. We don't have all the context, so I agree. Some forceful language like that, where it's a little bit kind of finger pointing. Did you lie to me? She doesn't point her finger, but those words have that connotation. I would agree. Maybe don't say something direct like that. But she ends it with saying thank you to both captains, which
Yeah.
I think shows that she does have that level of rapport.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And I have heard folks from USA say like they're not looking to hear refs say the kind of like very Nigel Owensy pithy remarks that like kind of get clipped and put on YouTube. Like, you don't want to be famous for something funny you say in a match, right? Like, that's not your goal out there. So as fun as those things are, like, we're not gunning for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, good question, Jeff.
And the last piece of this, I think that on this slide here is the that captain referee rapport. The captain wants certain things from the referee and is going to want them all game. And the most obvious one that the captain wants is calls in their favor. So, in the big thing, this goes back to the types of conversations that you're inviting. Make sure those conversations are productive to the overall game and not just the captain asking you for calls. Oh, ma'am, the lineouts haven't been straight all day. Well, they've been straight enough for me. You don't need to say that out loud. That's just not something you need to address. If they think they haven't been straight, but you haven't called them not straight, again, you disagree on the picture, reframe the conversation. The picture I want to see for the lineout is your team needs to jump sooner to contest the ball in the air. Otherwise, it's going to be play on. So reframe that for what you want to see them to do and answer more of the spirit of the question rather than we don't want to get into like a factual dispute with a captain during a game because that reduces our overall rapport, which reduces our overall trust. And now we're eroding that relationship.
Yeah, who's the final adjudicator of fact and law during a match?
One of the things to keep in mind is what is the captain thinking during the interaction? So, really good point from Jeff there is like the types of language we want to use. We don't want to be accusatory towards the captain because, again, the captain is there to help us facilitate the game of rugby. So, make sure that you're framing the responses in a way that's conducive to maintaining that conversation throughout the match. Of course, at some club level type things in the local game, we might have a captain we end up not being able to work with because of verbose disagreements, and those things you do need to be able to handle. But consider this with a large amount of empathy as you go into your pregame chat. Should then facilitate how you interact during the match. Should then facilitate a really strong rapport with the captains during the match, that where you have their buy-in and they can trust you and you can trust them. So we just talked about what we think the captain might be after. Of course, they want calls in their favor, but one of the main things you can do is help build that confidence that you know what you're doing and they know what they're doing. And you can start that from the very beginning. Like, especially at the high school level, it's sometimes effective to congratulate the person for being captain of their team. That's kind of a big deal. If you're late in the season, congratulate the captain for making it to things like playoffs or things like that. Gets you that kind of level of rapport as well. And then you can also say something like, I'm very excited to be in charge of your match today, or it's an honor to be here, something like that to give that same level of rapport back. I'm respecting you as a player and you're respecting me as a referee because we started that conversation with the proper amount of rapport. And then that builds the captain's confidence in your ability to referee the game. Heavily contested games will get heated. And if you as a referee have that level of rapport and you have that calm demeanor on the field, it's a lot easier when you do take time off and have the captains come walk to you, that they're going to listen to what you say. Some of those captain inquiries, if they're asking for things like a certain call or whatever, goes back to the way you reply to them versus whether you choose to reply or not. If they're just asking for calls, try to reframe it. But if you just say, if they're like, hey, there's an issue in the scrum, number 3 is boring every time we set the scrum, and you say, yeah, I'll deal with it, but you never do anything and you never say anything, that captain might continue to be frustrated with you during that match. So some level of response is usually a good idea, even if it's just a reframing of the question to reinforce the picture that you want to see. So here's a couple of examples of the things that might be said or brought to you as a referee by a captain. And you want to try to suss out, is the captain disagreeing with you on the facts, or is the captain asking you a question that has the spirit of the question behind it might be different than the actual question being asked. And this is a nuance that we as referees at the club level have to try to suss out because captains at our level aren't really trained on how to communicate with referees very well, if at all. So you see this a lot at the international level where the captain knows how to frame the question as asking something very specific. So they might say something in an international test match, they might say something like, ma'am, we're trying to play faster than this. So what that captain's trying to convey is that the rucks are too slow because the captain thinks the defense isn't moving away fast enough. At the club level, what we might hear is they're laying all over my ball. What they mean is they want cleaner, faster rucks. So the spirit of the question is, I want to play faster. And your response as a referee should be, here's the picture I want you to show me. Show me your players are arriving on time. Show me your scrum half is ready to play the ball and that there's a person ready to catch the ball. Now I'm going to consider penalizing that person for not rolling. But if your offense isn't set up to be able to play that ball quickly and the defensive tackler takes too long to move out of the way, I don't really care because you can't use the ball yet anyway. So these are the things you're trying to contextualize in your mind as you start to get these questions come back to you. Avoid argument about fact. Did they roll? Did they not? Was the throw straight? Was it not? And instead focus on the picture you want to reframe it to and the spirit behind the question. Some good examples of how to reply are in here already. On the slide, you can see them here. So reframing things like this is how I'm seeing it, or here's the picture I want to see on things like rucks, scrums, formation of lineouts is a good thing to like tell it like a story or a picture that you're trying to take. Like if the tunnel's nice and wide, then I'll easily see them closing the tunnel. But if you guys start right on top of each other and you think their jumper's interfering, you kind of did that to yourself by closing the tunnel before the throw. Things like that you can reframe as a picture. Back to you, Jake. What's 28-0 mean?
28 knows we don't want those games with high penalty counts. I don't know how they came up with the number 28, but it is certainly high. And from personal experience, the last 15s match I did was a Midwest quarterfinal D2, and I had 33 penalties in it. And that is too many. That's one of the big things I've been working on through my career. And only recently, like basically when I went to this RDG this past winter, did I get the tools to like really actually effectively address this. So we're sharing this with all of you so you don't end up where I am, where I'm still trying to solve the same thing that I've been struggling with for a couple of years. And I'm looking forward to Saturday because I get black and blue, which is a notoriously penalized team. This is a chance for me to practice this stuff.
Wait, that's my club, man. You can't be dissing them.
I can because they were red carded and a ref had to abandon a match last season. So
Oh,
the
ouch.
data bears out what I have said, Jeff.
All right. I concede.
Since this is being recorded, I'll remind everyone that they promised better behavior this season, and so I have full confidence that you won't be blowing 28 penalties that game.
Well, it's also on me to not to use the things we're talking about in this presentation so that it doesn't even come to that. We're going to address it sooner. So we've talked a little bit about trends, right? So like if we're the way you get to so many penalties is because there are trends of penalties. Like there'll be a whole rash of breakdown penalties or repeat infringements, right? And then so in considering like what do we mean when we say a trend? It can be an individual player, it can be similar team infringements, it can be general negativity, it can be red zone area. But the main thing to take away is that a trend is like it's close together in situational time. So what we mean by that is like in like general open play, so like breakdowns happen all over the field. If they continue to enter at the side, we want those. If there's a trend, we're seeing like 2 or 3 when they're on defense, kind of like within like 15 to 20 minutes is probably like you should be pinging. It's like, oh, this is getting to the point, right? But for other things like a scrum, if it's penalty at a scrum, it almost doesn't matter how much time has passed in between because like it's just a scrum and then it's the next scrum. And so it's like, is the same thing happening at scrum 2 that happened at scrum 1? Trend. Maybe, it's like if they go scrum 1 to scrum 4 before it happens again, it's like you might be like, maybe it's not a trend anymore. Like they maybe fixed it and something just went weird once. So like the point is like it's not just game time, or it's not real time is that considers it close. It's like situational as well. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? Cool. We'll like look at some scenarios that like kind of describe what situational means a little bit more later too. One thing we hear USA say is like 2 is a trend. So if you've got 2 of a similar kind of penalty and they're close together in situational time, that should be like pinging our brains and be like, okay, I might need to watch this thing. And then just a caveat here, intentional and foul play stuff, totally separate from this. It's like you see something bad that is like card worthy, like just go with your process for like that. If it's head contact, go through the head contact process. If it's contact in the air on a jumper, go through that process. What we're talking about in this presentation is repeated infringements. So when we're talking about escalation, what options are available to us? And I want to kind of open this up and have people participate. So anyone can come off mic and kind of drop some ideas out here. What are the tools in our toolbox?
If we are seeing like a trend happen, let's say I've had two coming in from the sides here, I could call the captain of the, if it's one team doing it, I can call that one captain over. If both teams are doing it, I can pull them over and have a discussion about it, saying, hey, gentlemen, I'm seeing this. Let's clean it
Yep.
up or we're going to have more penalties.
Yep. You can go full time off and have a chat. Yep.
Can I expand on that thought really quick?
Sure.
Dave, is it a very formal or informal chat that you're having with the captain?
I would be having a formal chat.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Just a thought for another option is before a formal chat, having that informal chat of we're both running down the field after to a line out. Hey, 2 not rollings in a row, need better. Something like that.
Copy that.
Yep. That's another tool as well. What else do we have? What happens? Say Dave has that, Rosie has that chat, and it's formal, and then it happens again. What's going to be? What happens?
Penalty.
He's just talked to the captains that he wants them to stop doing the thing, and so you're just going to do only a penalty again after having stopped the game to tell them to stop doing it.
And it's most likely going to be a yellow card, I would imagine, because they've not heeded the formal warning.
Yeah. So we're talking. I mean, we've got we've 3 options now in our toolbox, right? We've got an informal talk, a formal talk, and you can give a card. There's a couple things before those 3 things that we can also use. Any ideas?
I'll take an opportunity at a breakdown to have a quick chat, scrum line out.
Yep. I put that in the informal bucket that Alec talked about.
Okay.
The couple other things I'm thinking of here is like we talked about the pre-match chat earlier. So setting the expectations before the game even starts is one of your tools. And then in the first 10 minutes, setting a standard with your calls. You see a side entry, you penalize it immediately rather than playing advantage. Everybody saw that picture and remembers what it looks like and knows what that standard is. You play advantage, people forget that picture and they go like, oh, we're coming back for side entry, whatever that looked like. They won't remember exactly what it was.
And I've found it helpful in those scenarios where you're, penalizing that early color number so they know who it is. Their own teams get on the guys. That's somewhat of a self-fix to that.
That's good practice. I mean, for our newer refs, we're working on primary signal, then secondary signal. For our refs who've been around a little bit, you go primary, secondary, and as you're giving those, you go color number and say it out loud so they know. Yeah, we'll get into some of the details of this, but I mean, I think we've covered.
I mean, I wonder, I've heard that really call guidance for so many years, but I don't know if many clubs really cotton on to that. Maybe some higher level clubs do, but I just wonder with the D3 level if people really recognize that tone set by the referee.
I love this comment because I think this is a symptom of the larger issue of overall our pre-game chats have been extremely inconsistent or sometimes not present at all. And so if we have that pre-game chat where we're setting the stage for how we all want the match to look, and you might even say, here are the things that I'm focused on or looking for today. And then in the game, you blow that very first penalty. I'm a really big fan of exactly what you said, penalty, blue 6 not rolling, and make direct eye contact with the captain. That reinforces like this is what we talked about before the game without having to say it. But if we don't have that proper pre-match chat, then Jeff, I completely agree with you. Blowing that first penalty is like, okay, well, that was the first penalty of the game, and there's nothing else to that. But if we have the pre-match chat, now it's part of the overall story, to Jake's point at the very beginning of the presentation.
And I'll add that if we, the pre-match chat, the high standard in the first 10 to 15 minutes, and then the second piece is the thing we're talking about today is like, what do you do after that if the high standard is not abided by. And if we start getting consistent with that, with there being bigger consequences for not abiding by that, I guarantee even the D3 will change. They don't want to play with 14 and 13.
Yeah, thank you.
So here's just a couple things to think about when we're thinking about trends. Team versus individual repeated infringement. So team wise, we're looking for like the same penalty or the same kind of penalty. Like it doesn't have to be hands in every time. It could just be a breakdown penalty while you're on defense. And then and an individual could almost be just more general. Like it can broaden out where it's like, well, this flanker is like just trying to steal the ball all the time. So there's side entry over here, they're off their feet over here, and then they're hands in over here, but it's the same player. So even though like they're kind of different things, or even he's offside, right? It's just that player is like doing a lot of things violating the law. So it's like your trend doesn't need to be as bundled in the same category if you're doing an individual trend for a player. Time and place, this gets in a little bit to situation. So place, especially, we're talking like if someone's defending in their red zone, we're going to look at all the times they're defending in the red zone and kind of almost ignore the time in between when they're defending in the red zone. If like each trip there's a penalty, and we'll get an example of this later in one of the videos. If each trip down here there's a penalty, then it's a trend because each data point is like, yes, each time we come here, penalty. Each time we come here, penalty. And now, do people have thoughts about how this might vary for different levels, competition levels, and abilities?
Yeah, obviously, if it's like, let's say it's high school and it's possibly that it's a new player that's playing aggressively but not quite understanding the rules, it might be a case of that, so it's not as like intentional, if you will, versus as if it's like a Division 1 men's or women's like 80-minute game. Obviously, you're expected to be at a higher caliber, so making repeated individual fouls is obviously going to warrant card faster.
Yep. I think the big takeaway here is that the real difference is that at higher level matches, like trend is 2, and we always want 2 to start pinging our brains. And at really high level matches at 2, I'm probably having dropping a comment as we're walking to a set piece. At 3, I'm probably having a formal conversation, and at 4, it's probably a card. At like a high school match, those numbers just get a little bit bigger, but I'm doing the same stuff, right? Like there still may be a card, and like this is kind of part of a bigger picture. Is like cards are a really good tool to get behavior change and to teach people how important stuff is. So like it might feel bad that that player like is sitting down, but think of the other 29 players that are now able to play more rugby because that player's not messing it up anymore. Right? They may be messing it up on accident, but they're still messing it up. Can't wait to put that on the internet.
Fuck yeah.
So here's the actual process of escalation. So we talked about what identifying a trend looks like. Heads up is what Alec called the informal chat. This is comms to the captain as you're like walking to a set piece. It's not time off. It's just when you get a chance in the middle of things to a given player. It can be like as you're running by a ruck, you're like, I need your, like when you're rucking, I need your shoulders higher. Like that was almost diving over and you're just running by. Final chat, that's that formal thing we were talking about. And we're going to talk a lot about what the content of that is. And then obviously the intervention, which is usually a yellow card.
Another opportunity for that heads up comms could come in immediately after you blow the penalty, especially if the team is like taking their time, their fly half has to run over to pick the ball up to go hack it into touch. While the team is deciding, do we go for post, do we kick for touch, the team you penalize is backing up. That's a great time. You have the captain's attention because nothing else is happening. Everyone's waiting for the ball to be kicked. Great time to be like, Captain, that's been 2 in a row now. That's really all you have to say.
So we're saying with this last note is that you don't want to make a 50-50 one be the next thing in the trend, right? It should be more clear. It should be more obvious. We're not hunting for it, and our goal is not to find it, right? It's just if it happens, if it's big, grandma in the stands saw it, count it. So here, we're going to go into a little bit of a discussion. We've got some things that have happened in a match. And we're going to open up to the group about when. So these, the numbers on the left here are, this is how many minutes have passed in the half. And just say, at what point in here would you use these 4 steps of our escalation process? So if someone wants to say, first up, let's have someone identify a trend.
The tackle roll seems to be a prevalent one.
I think the tackle
Okay.
roll was actually just a symptom of more of an overall ruck and breakdown issue. I mean, we got 3-no roll, the side entry, hands on the ruck, pretty consistent.
Yep. You could do either. And both are candidates for trends. I do like Phil's point that side entry is also a ruck penalty. So you could say 10, 13, 22, 27, right? Like that's all the same kind of trend. So say we've identified the trend. We're saying, oh, there's a problem at the tackle ruck at the breakdown. When are you going to do a heads up? Like after which one of these timestamps would you try to do a heads up?
13.
Jed says after 13. That's 1 vote for 13. Let's just have everybody chime in. Take yourself off mute and let us know when you would do the heads up chat after which of these penalties.
I would probably go after 15.
Okay, that's 1
15.
vote for 15.
I'd agree
I'd
with
try.
15, especially because that's 3 kind of right one after another. If you wait till 22, you're looking at a kind of a lot of delay.
Okay.
I'm at 22 right now. Philip holding on at 15's more of an offensive one. The rest seem defensive ones. Yeah, I'd do the heads up at 22 for the second no roll.
Okay.
I think I would
We have
15, but I'd want to gauge how the opposition was, playing as well. If it was only red incurring the penalties, definitely earlier. If it was kind of back and forth, I might be talking to both teams.
sounds good. We have 2 in chat, and then we haven't heard from Noe. Noe, if you're able to unmute. If
22
not, no
for me.
worries. 22 for you as well. Okay. So we're a little bit spread out. We have 3 votes for 13, 2 votes for 15, and 5 people said at the 22-minute mark.
Yeah, so let's have a representative from each of those 3 groups. So someone who said we had one at 13. So what would be the content of the heads up at that point? Just give me what you would say.
Wow, you have no takers, Jake.
All 3 of them, huh?
Well, good news is, Jake, I'm one of the people who would do a heads up chat at the 13-minute penalty.
Let's go.
And I would say that's 2 breakdown penalties right next to each other.
Yeah.
That's all I
it.
would say.
Somebody who said 15, what would you say?
Yeah, then I would say that, okay, we've had several penalties at the breakdown. You're interrupting play, especially if they're the team that's mostly infringing, then so you have to clean this up and there'll be a yellow card and next infringement at the breakdown.
Okay. So, I mean, we're on the heads up chat, so we're not threatening yellow card usually at this point. This is just kind of like, we haven't blown time off. We're just saying, we're just letting the captain or a player, the captain ideally, know that we are noticing a trend, whatever that trend is. So it sounds like, Jeff, you're saying, hey, Red, I'm noticing the breakdown is not smooth and your team is slowing it down. I'd like to see that ball recycle, so we can play on. Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
probably too
mean,
much to say in a heads up, but that's the content.
Yeah,
you're
but I
trying to
mean,
communicate.
for me, I mean, I would try to, put that out there. Say, so we've had several, three, and we've got to get this fixed. We're 15 minutes into play. I for me, I wouldn't have any reservation about threatening a yellow card at that
Okay.
point.
Okay, I think I understand you. So right now, like we've been talking about the heads up, the informal chat. You're saying you wouldn't do an informal heads up at minute 13 with the second penalty, but at 15 you're going to go to final chat and threaten a yellow, which is a fine process. Like there are situations where, like, I agree, like
Yeah,
penalty 1,
yeah,
penalty 2 are a little bit different, and then penalty 3 is also pretty close in time, so the game might need that.
yeah. I'm open to the feedback, but that's where my head would be at, given the
Yeah,
situation.
like I'm
Awesome.
saying, there are games where that would be effective
Yeah.
for sure. I have no problem with that. Okay, and then we had one more where we had some people at 22. So what is the heads up informal chat you'd have at 22?
I'll take this one. Okay, so I mean, just in a dead ball situation, hey, red captain, noticed a couple no rolls, penalized you for a side entry. Need these breakdowns cleaned up a little bit more so we can get the game flowing a little bit better. I don't want to have to escalate this, but I mean, this is what I'm looking for to clean this up.
Cool. What I liked about that is you listed the number and the type of penalty that it was. So like you are being really clear with the captain what the trend is that you're noticing. That's very important. And we'll get to that a little bit more. Cool. We have identified trends. We're not going to go final chat because we're going to discuss what should be the content of that later. And obviously giving the yellow card is just giving the yellow card. So we'll move on. So we've kind of gone over this a little bit, but here's some good times where you can do that heads up, right? It's not a time off. You don't need the double whistle. You don't want to bring the attention of the entire field, all 30 players, everybody watching, to you. You're just like on the down low, passing some info to the Capitan.
And the quotes here is a really good example of being specific while keeping it very succinct.
Yeah.
Break down infringements. Address it, please. All you need to say.
Yep. And I do like what Andy did is like he gave the number of them. It's like there's been two
Yep.
not rolling, one side entry. Can you address it, please? Like then that captain is like, you're inspiring confidence. Like they know that you're doing your job. And they're like, okay, this guy's on his stuff, right? Cool. So now we're going to look at some examples of the heads up itself.
That was dropping. Or Marshall, one of the two. Although Crusaders trying to counter ruck here. You're throwing down the ball. Ryan Hoffman not making too many friends in the crowd here, but he's got the Crusaders for slowing the possession down. I'm not quite sure who it was who took that hack. It was either Marshall or Crotty, and we do tend to get those two mixed up. They're quite similar looking. It was wild and could have come spectacularly wrong.
They've just got to clear out of the way. The scrum half's got to get to the ball faster, okay? Listen, there have been many penalties, but they seem to come here.
So what's cool about that is you'll notice like one team is blowing out the other. It's near the end of the first half. Really lopsided score. The only times Black has scored were both penalties. They have 6 points. So, and the ref is noticing, hey, every time we get down here, you guys are potentially preventing tries by committing penalties. And that is a strategy teams use. Rather give up 3 than 7, right? Ref notices it. He says, we always have seen a problem down here. This is a situational one where it's in the 22. So it's like every time we come down here, there's a problem. Just mentions it to the captain. It's on the way to the line out. It's easy. Yep.
2 in a row, slowing it down. Okay. Need more discipline there. Clear the space, please. Yep. Get thumbs off.
Interesting enough there, Gareth Dell came in.
That's it. It's as easy as that. Time was off for something else. Opportunity to point out 2 in a row.
Just 2 things. One is a chatter, which is unnecessary. And then 3 penalties already for offside. Can you take a step back, please?
Did you guys see how many minutes had passed in this game? Sorry, wrong one. Ah! It's got 2 to 3 offsides in minute 7. Pretty quick. Any questions about the heads up?
Can you go back to that slide that has the sequence?
Oh, the whole.
Yeah, there, right
Here,
there.
it's-
Identify trend, heads up. Okay, thank you.
You got it. Okay. Phil, you on this one?
Sure. Final chat, everyone's favorite or least favorite thing to do. However, keep in mind that with the story we're trying to build, you had the pregame chat, you instilled the confidence, you built the rapport with the captain, you had a few penalties, you let the captain know that you've noticed them infringing in the same way a few times or in the same technical zone of the field. Now it's time to escalate because behavior has not changed. And so the final chat, you're letting the captain know very clearly what the expectations are. And this is one step above that heads up chat. So you want to be very clear on what you're seeing in terms of that trend, which is why it's really good practice to start to recognize these happening during a game and kind of park those in the back of your mind to be like, okay, I had blue in the breakdown 2 or 3 times, then you let the captain know, and then blue comes and cheats in the breakdown again. Whether it's not rolling or in from the side, maybe we have just an overall breakdown infringement trend. Now I'm taking time off, and Jake alluded to it earlier, but time off is a big deal because we have a big penalty and then we have double blast, boop boop, time off, captain. And the main things to keep in mind here are the way you communicate. You want to make sure it's open body language. You're still working with the captain to drive the outcome you want to see. But what we're trying to do is have that conversation with the captain, and so all the players are seeing it happen, so everyone knows that this is serious business. The informal chat is a way to see, can the captain solve this for you without you having to escalate? When we get to final chat, where we are now is you have to intervene because the captain and the players have not fixed it. So what you're going to say is, we've had an issue with blah, whatever the trend is. If it does not get corrected, someone's going to go sit down. And it's actually good to paint yourself into a corner with this because you aren't going to talk about it ever again. You are escalating on purpose because we have these other steps along the way that have already happened. Without those other steps, it becomes very difficult to say, Captain, we've had, penalties all over the place. I feel like I might have to card somebody soon. And it's the old adage of, 5-10 years ago of don't paint yourself into a corner. Now, if we're following the right process and we have all those building blocks in place, we are painting ourselves into a corner because the expectation needs to be very clear. Clean this up or I'm going to have to is a very much dichotomous statement to make. If I blow another penalty, everyone knows the next one's going to be a yellow card now because we were very clear with what we expected to happen. It's also going to be very clear to the other 29 players, very clear to the audience, any camera that's watching the game, because you pulled in the captain, you explained it very clearly. Now the next time you take time off, everyone's expecting there to be a card. So the final chat is very different from the informal chat in terms of severity and outcome. The expectation that we're setting in the informal chat is, hey, there's a trend here, I need you to fix it. The expectation we're setting in the final chat is, if you don't fix it, someone goes. And I strongly encourage all of you to practice how you would phrase that. What's comfortable for your own vernacular? How do you like to speak with people? How do you like to communicate with captains? And just practice saying those types of things, whether it's at a local club training that you might go to or with another referee is a great way to do it. But practice those statements so that when you are in a game, it comes naturally and you're not fumbling for your words. It should be very clear. Captain, there's been too many breakdown infringements. If another one happens, I'm going to have to card a player. Very clear outcome, and the captain can go take that on for you. It's a good example here. You want to, again, list exactly what the trend is that you're seeing and set the expectation of what outcome will happen if they do not fix it. The more specific you can be, the better. Jake, do you have any examples of this?
Sorry, of what?
Do you have examples of final chat in video?
Oh, yes. We will get there.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know there's one more slide. My bad.
Yeah.
Just I'd say
Remember,
add one thing, Phil, is there've been times when I've given that final chat in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And when the second half starts, I remind the captain, we still are on this final chat.
Thank you very
love
much for
that.
bringing that up. That's a fantastic use of your halftime, is reminding the captain the trends, especially if you had either an informal or a formal chat in the first half. Remind the captain coming out of halftime. We had this trend in the first half. I happy with how you cleaned it up until now. Let's keep that going in the second half is a great way to build that positive rapport, encourage the behavior you want to see. Because again, that halftime chat is still informal, right? It's not plays not happening. There's no double blast, time off. That's not the situation. So halftime is a great time to do another reinforcement, informal type of chat to elucidate the behavior you want to see in that second half,
Yeah.
or simply remind them that that trend is still being tracked.
Yeah, it's not, you don't get a clear slate going to the second half.
Exactly right. So, does anybody think it's possible to have more than one trend at the same time?
I would
Absolutely.
suggest that in some games it's almost probable.
Here we are refereeing community rugby. Yes, it will sometimes be possible. You could have multiple different types of trend. You could also have overlapping trends. So you can have a scrum trend against blue and a ruck trend against blue and a specific player on the blue team is infringing. And all three of those things might be different. So the scrum one might be binding issue with the props. The breakdown infringements might be multiple different people doing multiple different things. And they might also have 7 blue has been offside twice. Those are 3 different trends you're trying to keep track of in your mind, which is very difficult to do. I can't emphasize enough that this is a difficult muscle to flex, especially when you've never worked on it before, which is why we wanted to have this presentation before the fall season so everyone can start to practice this in your games and start to recognize, even if you don't follow the process perfectly, even if you don't have, oh, I should have done the informal chat 1 penalty sooner or 1 penalty later, that's all fine. The main goal is to start to recognize it, start to pick up on when this is happening so you can start to include this process.
Yeah,
And
depending
of
on where
course,
you
once you
are.
have multiple trends, now you have multiple trends might be in different stages of the process as well. So you might have one that's just starting, while you have a different one that's already on informal chat, and a third one that's on final chat already. Across an 80-minute game, that might happen. You have 3 different trends, all in 3 different stages of the processing.
Let's look at some examples.
Way offside. There's a lot of penalties down with attacking down here. If it continues, then someone's going to go, okay? So you have a word, please, yeah, concentrate.
And a thumbs up, thumbs down. Anybody have strong opinions of that? Is that a good example or a bad example of a final chat?
Well, he said a lot of penalties, so he wasn't terribly specific, in my opinion.
I agree. But where were the penalties, Rosie?
In the same area he had said, and back there, which is a
Yep.
big
So
specific point there. So that's like a half and a half for me.
exactly. So he said we've had a lot of penalties down here, which in Welsh parlance means red zone. We're in the 22, right? We can see on camera where this penalty is happening. This is a scoring opportunity for the team in black, and the team in gold has infringed again. So for the referee to say we've had a lot of penalties down here, maybe we care less about what the infringements are. And this might be one of those ones Jake highlighted where it's a zone infringement, where it's specifically because this is red zone. That's our red zone trend. That make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sweet. Anybody else think this is a good or a bad example? Let's answer that question that's on the slide. Was the message clear? What outcome is Nigel Owens trying to drive here? Oh, come on. Somebody. Noe, help me out.
When he's trying to get them to clean up in the red zone so that New Zealand has chances to score points and make it look exciting instead of just taking three all the time.
Great. And what outcome is he setting the stage for here?
That the next one that goes play inside the 22 is a yellow card.
And based on what Rosie said, where he did not tell us what the trend was, instead he gave us down here is the problem area. Second question on the slide, what kind of infringement will be a yellow card based on what he just said?
Any penalty?
Any penalty in the 22, somebody's going. Because again, our trend in this particular example is red zone penalties of varying types. Excellent.
Hold on, they make the tackle, and the other was Vito that cut him down. So what he's on the side, yeah. Chris Eaton, reserve halfback.
Look, every time they get some momentum, you can see a penalty. Yeah.
Next one, they may lose a player. He didn't threaten there, but it's quite obvious if that's what you're going to do. Obnoxiously slow down the other opposite team. Yeah, Conrad Smith, clear in his message.
Okay. Thoughts on that one? Is that message extremely clear? More or less clear than the previous example? What do you guys think?
Extremely clear about what the infringement was.
Yeah, what was the infringement, Nick?
And from the side.
And what was the trend?
Trend was every time that blue team gets possession, gray is in from the side.
Yes, really close. I think you maybe just didn't quite hear him correctly, but he said every time they get momentum, you're infringing. So now the trend here is every time blues get front football, yellow does some infringement. Is the trend that Jocko's stating here? Is the message of outcome very clear here? Will there be a yellow card for the next infringement?
From what I heard there, yes.
I think we're unsure. He doesn't say it. He doesn't say next one. Like Nigel said, if this happens again, someone's going to go, which means, again, it's Welsh parlance for I am going to give a yellow card to the next person who infringes inside the 22. Versus this one, it was very much you need to clean this up. So this one is kind of a blend of that informal outcome, but he did a formal chat to get there because time's off for the penalty. He took the chance to talk to the captain. I think if this is a trend that he's recognized where we are now every time blue gets momentum, yellow kills it with infringement, he could have reframed that to set a more clear expectation that there will be a yellow card coming. From what we know about the way Jocko referees and the level of game, this is obviously Super Rugby from a number of years ago. The commentators are clearly like, yeah, next one's going to be a card. Everybody has that clear picture because he took time off and spoke to the captain. So the only thing we're really being niggly about is the exact words being used. Other than that, the story being told is very clear. Even the commentators like, yep, next one's a yellow.
And I think part of that is also based on the way that captain responded. He was kind of like right away, he's like apologetic, like, yeah, I know. And the fact that Jaco blew time off is like at that level, that's already a clear signal that something bad is going to happen. It's probably a yellow card. So you might not need to say it, but like, I agree that is at our level, we should be saying it because our players won't know. This is super. These players know each other. They know the ref. They know those tendencies. So everyone's expecting these things because they've seen them before. But we don't have that luxury. All right.
Yeah, no, listen, the difficulty is, of course, now the numbers. They're obviously penalties for different things, but it's now numbers of penalties. We just obviously need a little bit of discipline around how keen you guys are. Pardon? Isn't the ball outside? Yeah, no. The first thing I've got, okay, is the guy coming through playing your half back, and then the guy's coming around offside. We've got a multiple. I just need you to tidy everything up for me, otherwise you're going to lose somebody. Okay.
Well, that was
Everybody hear that okay? Somebody other than Nick and other than Noe, help me out here. Was the messaging clear?
Might be a language barrier there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, a little bit. You have an Australian talking to an Argentinian. But what was the messaging clear? Were the words that he was trying to convey? I thought it was quite clear, but what do you think, Jeff? Was the messaging clear?
Well, it was a little long-winded, I think, early on. The first few seconds were a little long-winded, but then he got to the core of the matter, the second half of the conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the observation from an outsider watching this is that Steve Walsh comes into that conversation wanting to talk about a trend, and the Argentinian captain comes into that conversation wanting to talk about the last breakdown. So now Steve says, okay, well, time's already off. I'm going to address that one, but now we're going to get to what I wanted to talk about anyway, which is I think what you picked on, Jeff, of why it took a little bit of time to get there, because he's got that empathy for what the captain wants to try to tell him. I think the big piece of this is his tone is very amicable. We're having a conversation. His body language is open. He's not pointing at the guy. He's got his arms out and saying, what we have here is a trend of too many penalties in general. They're different penalties, yes, but it's the number of penalties is now the problem. So we had a very clear identification of the trend. And did anybody hear the referee set expectations? Were the expectations clear? Anybody hear that part?
Yes, I believe at the end he did give a warning that the next one's gonna be a card or something to that extent. Yeah, he did say that at the very end.
Absolutely. So the messaging is super, super clear, and he took his time to get there, which is totally fine. If you're going to take time off to have a conversation with the captain, make sure the captain understands why time is off. You don't need to rush through that process. And if they want to argue about something else, either address it head on, like Steve does here, or if it's a nonsensical complaint, you can deflect it with some of the terminology we talked about earlier, like that's not the picture I'm seeing. What I am seeing is this. And now you can tell them what the trend is and then tell them the outcome if the trend does not get fixed.
Yeah, I mean, we covered this. It's just, if Steve had practiced what he wants to say in this moment, he might have been able to clean up those first couple sentences that came out of his mouth. But other than that,
pretty nice. Thanks. Okay, Matt, our issue now is number of penalties, okay? We've got a number of different penalties for varying things. Yeah. You're in the side down here. Okay, you need to tidy it up, otherwise you're going to lose someone, okay? Understand? Yeah, please.
Big Will Skelton.
Jeff, is that one a little bit cleaner for you?
Yes.
Yeah. You can tell Angus has practiced that. He came into that with it's too many penalties. That's the trend. If it happens again, someone's going to get carded. Very clear expectation setting. The captain was deferential in his body language. So you can tell they have rapport. It's not contestable. It's not heated. The captain's not disagreeing or complaining. The captain's like, yeah, right, you are. Let me go talk to the boys, which is the outcome you want to see, especially from a international. He did play international, but this is a super game again.
all right. So just the yellow card intervention itself is just what you'd expect it to be. So the next relevant PK, so we talked about it's not a 50-50, right? So the question there's like, would you even be blowing it if it's 50-50? And the next, so like if the side entry was a trend, you blew time off and warned a captain about, and there's another side entry, everyone is expecting that card. And so if you don't give it, there goes your credibility.
And I think this is a really good example of what we talked about earlier with different levels of the game, different divisions or competition levels you might be refereeing. In a high school game, very much welcome the captain to this yellow card process, because this reinforces what you've talked about with that captain. And at the high school level, it helps them understand that this is how this goes, and that a yellow card is part of the process. And it's not you you as a referee are not mad at the player as a player. What you're trying to do is facilitate that game of rugby. So you might, in a D1 men's game, you might say blue 6, side entry, time off, yellow card. Let's have the penalty, because everybody knows, as Jake just said, everybody's expecting that yellow because we went through the process entirely. But below that level, it might be worthwhile to reinforce the overall picture that you're still setting. You don't need to, what this says is you don't need to call the captain over to do the card, because everyone should know it's coming. But at lower levels of the game, it does help you for the management of that game after the card to make sure the captain knows this is what we've talked about. Now he's got to go sit down. And now it doesn't have to be a big, long, drawn out conversation, but you're putting that final step in the process right in front of the captain to help them understand this is a process you've been following. You're not just pulling a card out for no reason. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think at the lower levels, the captains appreciate the conversation. At the higher level, it's more like bang bang. They know what's going on. But yeah, the conversation with the D3, college teams, it's very helpful.
Yeah, exactly right. Super helpful to understand the level that you're refereeing at and the expectation you set for them during these other building blocks. We had the pregame chat. Then during the game, we had penalties. I identified a trend. I told you that I saw the trend starting to happen. Then I stopped time to tell you if the trend continues, someone's going to have to go. And now here we are, somebody's got to go. Now, as a captain, you can see the building blocks I've put in front of you. Absolutely right, Jeff. I think this is a good question for the audience just to kind of mull over. Let's say you've got, I'm going to ask somebody again. I'm just going to pick on somebody in here. Hannah, if you're able to unmute. Let's say you've got red 6 offside, and 3 minutes later you have red 4 offside, and then 3 minutes later you have red 5 offside. Blue kicks down to the line out. You say, on the way to the line out, you say, red, that's 3 offsides within like 5 minutes of each other. Make sure we get that last foot. Blue captain's like, yeah, I got you. Or sorry, red captain's like, yeah, I got you. In an 80-minute game, say we're at minute 15. How long into that game are you going to wait for that trend to start to go away in your mind versus that next one becomes formal chat, final chat?
You can hear me okay?
Yep.
I would probably say like a good 15 minutes, maybe. That kind of all happened pretty quickly. Maybe I would want to watch it because I mean 3 minutes, that's pretty tight, I would say, especially if it's the same infringement, and it's kind of the only one that's happening. I would want to kind of watch that pretty closely for a little bit.
Yeah, excellent idea. I think that 15 gets you really close to halftime, and maybe you get through to halftime without having to address it again. So now, Jed, let's say same situation. You did that informal chat on the way to that line out. You followed Hannah's advice. You just let it breathe for 15 minutes. Hasn't been an offside penalty yet. You make it to halftime without another one. Is there anything you can do at halftime to make sure you set yourself up for success in the second half?
I know, especially in 15s at halftime, I like make sure I talk to the captains. When I talk to that captain, then remind him like, hey, it's gotten better, but let's keep an eye on the offsides and make sure it doesn't reappear. So that would be my first next step.
I absolutely love your first sentence choice there. That is one of the biggest parts of how we communicate with captains. Reinforce the behavior you want to see. Give the captain credit for fixing the issue, even if the captain didn't personally fix the issue. Be like, hey, great job solving that offside issue we had in the very beginning of the game. We didn't have a fourth one. We had 3 quick ones, and we made it to halftime. So keep it up in the second half. Let's have a great game. Is a wonderful way to reinforce that level of confidence and that mutual rapport you have with that captain. That's a great example, Jed. I completely agree with you. Okay, so now we get second half. 4 minutes into the second half, we have offside, red 8. Rosie, what are you doing?
Well, we just had a little bit of a break there, but this is now the fourth instance in a single game. I feel like I would have to take time off and talk to that captain and say, okay, I know we've had a long break. We've been doing well, but now we've just started the second half and we're at it again. This needs to stop or someone's going to come off the field. I think that's the approach I would initially go to.
So we had a long break. We had halftime. We reset expectation at halftime. They come out rip roaring second half, did some smelling salts or whatever. Now they're offside again. Everybody agree with Rosie, or does anybody disagree with Rosie's approach there? If you agree, don't say anything. If you disagree, let me know why.
I might, in that, well, go ahead. Wherever else
I
that
think
was.
I think if I'm looking at that and it's been 25 minutes of the first half and a few minutes of the second half and I have a nice little hey I appreciate you guys cleaning that up at the half. I'm coming out of the halftime and I'm still at that kind of informal heads up stage. Hey, we spoke about this in the first half. You guys did a great job of it. Let's not make this into a trend for the second half.
Okay, so it sounds like you would do another informal instead of going to the final chat. Am I reading you right?
Exactly. That's correct.
Andy, anything to add?
That's pretty much exactly where I was going to be at with that too.
Awesome. Great ideas from all three of you. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no answer in the book that says it's this correct way to do it. It's what does the game need? If the offside penalty coming out of the second half is egregious and the guy's like 2 meters offside and he smokes the fly half as he catches the ball, probably final chat time. If he's offside and you see him and you catch him and he steps back or whatever, whoops, maybe it's informal chat time. So what does the game need is the underlying important factor of this whole trend identification. So I think both answers can be correct depending on where we are in the game
Well,
and
I
what the
also
game needs in the time.
I also think another factor that could be one as well is I think initially you had said it was like red 3, red 5, then red 4. And if that first one is one of the three that got talking about, could also be a factor. As opposed to say it was like the inside center this time. It obviously then that's not the same person, but now I've noticed a trend that if single person's had multiple penalties, that could also be a factor between another informal chat versus final chat as well.
Yeah, I gave different numbers on purpose because now we can have the ability to track two trends at once. We have a team-wide offside trend, and we have a red 5 infringement situation. And so both of those could be at different points in that process, as we talked about earlier. So coming out of halftime, say the first half had been number 6 first, and then 5-5, and then coming out of halftime, it's 5 again. Oh, I'm absolutely at final chat. Because the last 3 offside penalties have been you, buddy. You are the problem. Versus if it's 4 different numbers, and we had that long break late in the first half, and then we had halftime, we came back, and we had another one right away. It's 4 different people, an offside trend in general across the whole team. I might reissue, go back to the informal chat at that point and say, I agree with whoever said it earlier. We cleaned it up in the first half. I really don't want this creeping back into the game. Make sure you sort it out. So either way, it could be right, again, depending on what the game needs. Great answers, guys. Excellent discussion. So here's a written out example. I'm going to give everybody time to read this and understand it. Feel free to ask questions. Take yourself off mute if you have any questions. But take your time to read all 4 bullet points, understand the context, and then chime in and let the group know what you think you would do here. Alec, haven't heard from you in a minute. If you have this situation understood, let us know if you're ready.
I think so. So at this point, I'm probably at an informal chat right after 34 minutes and then formal chat because it's only 8 minutes of gameplay between the half. I mean, also not figuring that I don't use that halftime time to talk to the captain. I'm probably at formal chat then at 4 minutes in, and then the next one's going to the bin.
Okay, so you're at informal chat on the third penalty.
Yes.
Final chat after the fourth penalty, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Assuming that they played a clean game under pressure the entire first half before this, because there's no context for the first 25 minutes. But just under the pressure here, yeah, probably I could see both informal or formal chat after the third.
Excellent. And perhaps that gets informed by the level of play that this is. So
Yes.
if this is high school boys, maybe it's informal after the third one, formal after the fourth. If this is D1 women, probably informal after the second, formal after the third, and that fourth one's going to be a card for me.
Yes.
Potentially.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Excellent. Any other thoughts on this overall situation that you want to call out?
Not particularly.
All right, thanks. Anybody else want to chime in?
I'm just going through the mindset of a referee here and just look at the time. It's like, so right towards the end of the first half, we got like two very quick penalties, and it seems like almost right off the bat in the second half, we got another one. So I feel like I have to take time to talk properly and give a good reprimand and let them know because all of a sudden I don't want the second half to just go because like the game was going great for the first 25 minutes, got really sketchy there towards the end of the first half, and now we're starting the second half red hot again. So I got to get this under control before this becomes a thing.
Good observation. I like contextualizing the timestamps. That's a good idea. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think if Red's only offending when they're under pressure versus, other points in play, yeah, that might suggest they're really trying to kind of subvert the process and find a way to gain the advantage that way.
Yeah, completely agree. Anybody else?
I wonder if this is a place where it wouldn't be worth it to have a conversation at halftime. You've already got the stoppage, so you hit halftime, you have a chat with Red's captain, you say, "Look, you guys had three really quick uh, penalties, all down inside the 22. That needs to be cleaned up as you go into the second half, especially if you've already had that. You know, if you've had the informal chat, say at the 34-minute mark, reinforcing it at the half, even if it's not really a formal chat, and then you can decide. This is a situation where I wouldn't be trying to hardline it, where I'm trying to reinforce what I said at 34. But that way, at 4 minutes, if we're in a situation where I feel the need, we can go directly to that yellow card, and it's not really unreasonable.
That's right. We don't have video, right? This is just a written example, so everyone's got a slightly different picture of, what does it mean for Red to be under pressure and be offside at a ruck. But assuming that this was a videoed game and on that 34-minute blue ball, they're 5 meters out, they do a line out, defense stops the maul, Blue's picking and driving multiple phases, Red 10's offside at the ruck, you play advantage, Blue knocks it on, Blue kicks a penalty goal. Could you imagine a situation where that as its own standalone instance is a yellow card? So I'm thinking about trends, but I also don't want to lose the big moments when the big moments happen. How offside is Red 10? Is he in the passing lane of a probable try? They're only 5 meters out and they were picking and going multiple phases. Like I'm expecting either Blue comes away with points or Red infringes unless they perform a very clean turnover. So in my head, I'm already like, Red's under pressure here is my mentality. And if red's offside, again, we don't have video, but imagine red is offside egregiously in the passing lane and blue has an overlap. Anybody go into pocket there?
I think that one and the fourth example there could, depending on the rest of the situation, could quite easily be cards in and of themselves, if not penalty tries.
That's right.
When you're looking at intentional, it's clearly intentional, and like the ripping the ball away, especially in the third or the fourth one. It's clearly intentional. If they're the last defender there and that's why they're doing this, that's definitely something you can look at just in and of itself and within those two.
Completely agree. So that's the one thing we want to keep in mind as we keep track of some of these trends. Remember to still zoom out a little bit when you're on, especially on goal line or near goal line type plays. Take that half beat of step in your mind to say, I'm adjudicating this breakdown and I'm thinking there's a penalty here, but I'm also going to, as I'm blowing that penalty, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. How many defenders are there? How many attackers are there? Is there an opportunity here that just got ruined by this, making it more severe than if it was way over by midfield? So keep those things in mind. I know, again, this example doesn't give you too much specifics and there's no video, so we just wanted to make sure we talk through those situations. All right, same idea here. Bunch of information. Read through it. Take your time. Understand all the things that are happening. And then let the group know when and where you would enter into the process. We'll go with Patrick this time. If you're able to unmute Patrick, let us know when you're ready to invoke the process.
So I think probably after that second scrum with the tight head folding again, probably an informal talking to. And then fourth scrum after he folds again, probably a formal talking to or at that, yeah, penalty at that point. So
Okay, so informal chat on this after the second scrum penalty against red tight head. And then what'd you say after the fourth one situation where we have red tight head folding again? What would you do there? I missed it.
a formal talking to.
That's where you go to final chat.
Yeah,
Got it.
Is your final chat for the player or for the team?
for the player.
Good. One of the
So then
things to
on,
go ahead, Jake.
so then on the sixth scrum, Patrick, what are you doing, if anything, there?
For that one, probably just a formal talking to the team. It's a different player, but it's still red. Still the front row. So probably just a team talk at that point.
Yeah, and we don't have all of the information here that you have in a game when you see the whole picture. Where did the scrum happen on the field? It is Blues feed, which is different from all the other ones. And it is a different player. And so like there's scenarios where you could go, okay, this is the fourth red penalty at a scrum time. So you could go to formal chat for a team trend if that's what the game needed. You could also do what Patrick said. If the context is different, this scrum is more midfield, right? Like there's other reasons that it's only formal. So yeah.
I'd also throw out that if it's a red feed, you're probably on the left side of the drum, which means you don't see the tight head as well. And if it's only happening on red scrum, you might want to give extra attention to the blue loose head and whether or not he's just destroying the person illegally, potentially. That every time it's a red feed, they have problems, but then when it's a blue feed, ball's in, ball's out. Nothing really happens on that side of the scrum.
Yeah, it's a good point, Noe. That's some higher level scrum refereeing. I'm planning on doing a video on the third Lions match that will get into some scrum stuff. I know Rosie requested that. So yeah, for if that went over some people's heads, that's fine. Good points though, Noe. On red feed, you would not super expect red to be cheating because it's their ball. They should probably win it. So something else is going on here. Either they're under pressure that red tight head is outmatched and is going down to preserve the ball, like once it's actually been hooked or something, right? It is a little strange that red is infringing on their own ball, is the takeaway.
Yeah, I would just say like you could also just manage a scrum from the other side instead of watching it put in, and just go to the other side to get a better view.
Yep.
Totally.
Yeah, that's the final note on this slide is like, okay, you had penalty in the first two scrums on the far side of the scrum. Where are you going to stand on the third scrum? Maybe just go stand over there and see if a different picture shows up.
Right, I'm an old prop. They're gonna always try to cheat when you're on the wrong side.
Yeah. All right, this is our last one. Nick, when you've got a trend that you're noticing here, let us know what it is.
One that jumps out at me is 2 in the red zone within from 17 to 22 minutes.
Yep, especially if those are the only 2 trips to the red zone, so they're 2 for 2 on infringing when they're under pressure. Yeah. Anybody else noticing trends?
Reds are cheaters.
Well,
okay. When do you notice that trend?
17 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean 3 within 2 minutes.
And for me, what I'm seeing is it's this trip inside the red zone. You know, the high tackle gets them into the red zone. Now you're having an intentional infringement, or you have an infringement, and now you have another one. I'm very much looking at that not 10, if that's professional or not. Whether trend or not, it's that yells that somebody's doing that on purpose. So
Yeah, that's the Phil's point about like sometimes we zoom out and just look at what is this context of this specific penalty and does it need a yellow card just by itself?
I mean, depending on level, that's almost defaults to a yellow card. So
yes.
So I said depending on level, on the level and the people involved.
I mean, that's the part I was going to push back on a little bit, where it's like, again, what about the level is going to determine what, like, why would that being a high school game versus a different game make it less likely for you to pull a yellow? If the exact same thing is where that player is not back 10, ruins a 5-on-1.
Because at the high school level, I mean, then it gets down into how well I know these teams or players. I'm looking at the intentional aspect of it, not what it affected had. That's already bad enough. But should they have known better? Like if it's had coaches talks with the coaches before the game. Hey, I've got like 6 new guys. It's their second week playing rugby. Maybe they don't know what they've done wrong, where it's just a penalty and a talk. If it's not clear that's intentional, they get up, they're confused. You see them see the ball and hit the guy versus the D2 game where this guy's been playing for 20 years across the country and you blow a penalty up, he stands up, turns around and hits the guy again as he comes out. It's the intent is a large factor in that decision.
Yes. I don't know if you heard me when I said this, but like so same situation, this player's not back 10. That player ruins a 5-on-1 inside the red zone for the attack in a high school game. Are you doing the same thing?
A 5-on-1, yeah, it's probably going to be probably going to be a card at that point.
Okay.
Especially we're already inside the red zone. It also depends on how close that is. If it's
Yep.
reasonably close, that's now you're talking penalty try again.
Yeah, I just wanted to. You talked a lot about intent, and I just wanted to make sure you still had context in
Yes.
your consideration. So, like, yeah, we'll take a little bit of intent at newer players, but like, do not have that trump context. If there's nothing on, and it's like there were other tacklers, and like the attack just, ran into a guy who, like, that player didn't retreat and just tackled the first person. There's no major advantage to be had anywhere. There was no overlap or anything. It's like, yeah, it's fine to not yellow card a high school player for that. But
Mhm.
in a different context, it might be necessary to.
Yes.
Great. Any other trends?
Well, I'm just looking at it through my head here, and I'm imagining that penalties 15-minute to potentially the 30-minute mark are all still that red zone happening. So obviously there's a bunch of things going on, especially collapsing a ball inside the red zone. Obviously, as you always warrants like a yellow card, but I also think it's possible that they've already scored and now we're somewhere else in the field by minute 27 penalty there. And then it just makes you look at the last two penalties thinking, okay, well, these are nothing to do with the red zone anymore. It seemed completely random compared to what was going on earlier. So no correlation between the 32-minute penalty and 39-minute penalty based on what was going on in the red zone.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree. There's not really kind of repeat infringement here. It's just all over the board penalties.
I would, yeah, I would almost like want to bring them over to have a conversation saying, hey, like we got a lot going on here. I'm looking at that. It's less than what? It's less than like 20 minutes it's a little over 20 minutes of play and that many penalties. Like that's not disciplined. I need to talk to that captain because something's going on and it needs to be cleaned up fast.
Yeah. So we call that like the trend of no trend, or like what Steve Walsh and that with the Angus, the last two examples we had of like, it's a lot of penalties. They're different penalties, but it's too many penalties. And you can pick like any short stretch, like you probably addressed something after the 17-minute mark, right? About like, this is in the red zone, like something's going on here. And then from like 27 to 32, we have 3 within 5 minutes. So that's like another good opportunity to be like, okay, discipline's starting to go in the toilet again, right? And so like you have another formal chat or like whatever you need to do, but like recognizing like when these things are bundled together close in situational time.
I would agree with that. I'm thinking in my head as I'm looking at those first 4 or 5 penalties, and that's me. They panicked while the other team was putting pressure on their attacking, they were in their red zone. But then I'm seeing like potentially penalties 27-minute all the way to 39. I'm like, well, we're not potentially there anymore, and you're just continuously doing different penalties. So that just shows me that it wasn't just a situation that you were under pressure being scored on. Now you're just sporadically committing penalties and need to clean it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, everybody. Thanks for joining. That brings us to the end of our presentation. If anyone's got any further questions about this stuff, we can hang out a little bit and handle some. But anyone who wants is free to go. This recording will be posted on the Society YouTube page in the next couple days.
And if you would like us to cover any other topics, feel free to send them in and we can build content and do another video recording. And lastly, as you all start to hit your fall season and start to get in front of teams and doing games, try to get game film. Ask the teams. Teams often film themselves. Most clubs have VOs these days. Ask for the film because if we can't get a CMO to your game, we do have CMOs who are willing to review a film with you. So that's always an option. Feel free to reach out if you would like to review game film. And if you don't want to work with a CMO, that's fine. Strongly encourage you to watch your own film. The further you go up in refereeing, once you start hitting your L2, there are things that become required. Some stuff is like a referee journal, start to write down things, and another thing is film review. Referee coaches at higher levels want to see you self-review, and they want to look at your self-review after you've done it, and then they'll talk to you. So get in that habit now of like, I'm going to go back and watch my games, just like players do. They watch their games to get better. You as a referee, you can watch your own games to get better. I strongly encourage you to get film from teams. Thanks for joining, y'all. And those that watch it on YouTube, hi.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.